Kuulei, Perreira-Keawekane, no Pane'ewa Hawai'i Maiau. I belong to Fred Perreira and Jerry Perreira, also the Keawekane Ohana. I urge you to take the no action alternative and divest completely, no NSF investment in the construction and operations of an ELT in the Northern Hemisphere or anywhere. I just want to touch upon point number two in this really beautifully, probably expensive community engagement plan that it was to print. So the overview of the informal outreach effort that happened in 2020 and 2021, I didn't know about that. It didn't come up in my feed. I didn't get any email. My Uncle Rod Hawai'i and Auntie Pearl and the aunties down the street, which is how I usually know really important things, they didn't know either. So that's kind of important for you to consider, is that it didn't reach our community there. Number three is talking about the current process of the public engagement. So I'm encouraging you to reach out to Protect Mauna Kea. These are social media accounts where I may have seen any of these things happen. That's Protect Mauna Kea, Protect Haleakala, Huli.NVDA, Kuulei Music, which is myself, Painkillers, Mean Hawai'i, and also all the Instagrams of other people. I didn't see anything about, not this time. I'm from Hilo. We drove here, my Auntie Tiff, we drove here. So I didn't see anything at any point. So please, if anything was on any of those places, maybe I might have seen it. If somebody came to my door, if you reached out to any of the people in my community, it would have come to my door and told me. Anyway, I have a few points. Permitting process. I am uplifting this as evidence, and I hope you look into it. Section 13-5-30 of the Hawaii Administrative Rules provide 8 criteria in order for anything to be built in the Conservation District. I'm also uplifting the State Land Use Law, Act 187 of 1961, and also the Conservation District Use Permit application submitted by the University of Hawaii, which is completely inaccurate and false. I'm also uplifting the Pōkihi framework created by Dr. Keawekane Holokula, and I hope you look into all of these things. So section 13-5-30 says that in order for the TMT or any other entity to build in the Conservation District, they must meet 8 criteria. Criteria number 1, and the plan says that it meets these criteria. Criteria number 1, the proposed land use is consistent with the purpose of the Conservation District. The TMT does not meet that criteria. The State Land Use Law, Act 187 of 1961 defines conservation to mean the protection of watersheds and water supplies, preserving scenic areas, providing parklands, wilderness and beach reserves, conserving endemic plants, fish and wildlife, preventing floods and soil erosion, forestry and other related activities. The TMT doesn't have anything to do with any of those things. And so it's in violation of that first criteria, which is a requirement for the permit. Criteria number 3 is that the proposed land use will not cause substantial adverse impact to existing natural resources within the surrounding area, community, or region. The TMT does not meet that criteria, and the permit application written by the university says it does. Aboriginal science tells us that our place names are given for the function of the space and place. The Hawaii name for the proposed site of the TMT is Ka'ohe. The bamboo, well known for its ability to hold water. The TMT and the NSF investment in the TMT supports the extraction and misuse of the natural resource of Hawaii Island, which is our water. Criteria number 8 says that the proposed land use will not be materially detrimental to the public health, safety, and welfare of the people. The TMT, as you can see today in our testimony, does not meet that criteria. The Pōkihi framework and other documents written and published by Dr. Holokula provide scientific evidence on the socioeconomic determinants of health, which proves that the health of the people is directly related to the health of our land in Hawaii and beyond. Our cortisol levels and all the disparity and implications of cultural trauma that come with it go through the roof every time we need to prepare and pick la'i for meetings like these, like Antipo said, let alone the frontline action that will be required with this build. Since the beginning of this issue, our people who have testified and given our life and breath to the Mauna have died, committed suicide, self-harmed, and relapsed into our addictions because we are not being heard. The University of Hawaii, the Board of Regents, and every pro-TMT stakeholder thus far is blatantly ignoring the inaccuracy and absurdity of the permit application. The National Science Foundation has an opportunity to stand with Aboriginal science and cease the funding of this build today. My second point is your values as the NSF. You have a harassment policy. Your policy says that the NSF will not tolerate sexual harassment based on ethnicity, race, gender, or disability, other forms of harassment or sexual assault within the agency at awardee organizations, field sites, or anywhere science or education is conducted. I am a survivor of sexual abuse and rape, and I'm asking that you consider the resonance between the sexual harassment of our women when we say no, 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 and the political harassment of our indigenous people when we say no, no, no. Please consider that resonance. You have a transparency and accountability section on your website that says that the NSF is responsible for excuse me that I'm talking so fast, my tutus is like, what you said? You know? The NSF is responsible for building and sustaining the public trust through the accountability of your organization. That's your words. This is an opportunity that you have to deepen your Aboriginal relations by not investing in the TMT. I want to uplift the following publications as a pathway forward. Ma'ave Pono, a Hawaiian research methodology by Dr. Kukahakalau, Ki Ho'i Ho'i Kanawai, co-authored by Dr. Pualani Kanakaole Kanahele, and the dissertation of Auntie Kaleni Uhiva that I believe was published in 2021 or 2. Lastly, your commitment to science. Because of astronomy on Mauna Kea, my family and community associates the word science, not with curiosity and progressivism, but with racism, trauma, oppression, incarceration, and the sustained oppression of Aboriginal truth. That is not science. And the NSF, as the NSF, you are responsible for pioneering genuinely equitable scientific processes that honor Native people and consider Aboriginal science. Lastly, a decision, so this comes from the materials that you handed out to us today. A decision by the NSF not to go forward with an investment in the construction and operations of the 30-meter telescope could be made at any time, including before the environmental review process has concluded. I am suggesting that you make that decision today. Otherwise, the National Science Foundation will be complicit in the further displacement, disenfranchisement, and incarceration of Aboriginal people, which is scientifically proven to sustain disparity in communities like mine. If you do not divest from this project, and if you move forward in the direction of this build, we will have no choice but to do it again. We will sleep in the cold again, we will get arrested again, and our elders will risk their lives again, and you will be responsible. So again, my name is Kuulei Perreira-Keawekane, and I am in support of the no action alternative, which equates to the NSF completely halting the funding of the TMT. Before I conclude today, I just want to give my aloha to all of the kupuna who stood with me and ate cup of noodles for about 25 years in a row in the cold. Also to my Auntie Tiff who drove me up here, to Auntie Healani who came up here, to Tara. People came from far and right. So just aloha nui lo kako, and that ends my testimony for today.